Good morning, and welcome to another inspiring episode of the Good Morning Minute, where we start the day with purpose, power, and a little bit of passion. I'm your host, Angelina Mojica, and today's conversation is part of a special series in partnership with the Empower Her Steps virtual conference, a movement rooted in helping women rise, heal, and walk boldly into the life God has designed for them. Our mission is simple but powerful, empowering life purpose, because we understand when a woman finds clarity in her calling, everything changes for her family, her community, and generations to come. So friends, grab a cup of coffee, take a deep breath, and get ready to be uplifted as we dive into real stories, honest lessons, and bold steps towards purpose with our guest. And our guest today is Bethany. Bethany, welcome to the show.
Hi, Angelina. I am absolutely so excited to be here with you guys today.
Well, we are excited to have you, and I can't wait to get to know you a little bit further through our conversation. But before I do so, I like to start with a little icebreaker. Um, my question to you, Bethany, is what is your go-to morning drink?
My go-to morning drink would now this great question, by the way. My go-to morning drink is you're gonna think this is wild, but is I juice 4 lemons and I drink the raw juice, just raw, no watered down, just lemon juice. Yes,
Well,
straight.
that's different. I usually hear like tea, latte, coffee, but
Mm-mm.
hey, whatever gets your what is that metabolism going, that's where your energy is going to be based from. So
Mhm.
I can definitely dig that. Bethany, before we jump into the heart of our conversation, why don't you just kind of tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm Bethany. I'm the owner and founder of Bee Limitless Now, and I live in Memphis, Tennessee. Uh, so, how all of this came about, which is very, interesting. In 2020, my only child um, crossed back over into spirit. He died, and you know, it's interesting, Angelina, because when my parents came and told me that my son was killed, a drunk driver crossed over into his center lane, hitting him head on, killing him instantly. Angelina, it was interesting because, the first thing that I thought was I failed. I'm a failure. I couldn't protect him. I felt less than. I felt not enough. Worry, anger, rage, all of these emotions flooded into me. And, the day of his funeral, I was in his room, I was on my knees, and I asked God, I said, God, please give me a sign. I need some kind of sign from you. I don't know how I'm going to be able to do what is required today. So I'm walking away from the burial, and it's a cloudy day. And all of a sudden, the clouds part and a rainbow pops through. There was my sign. There was my sign that I had asked for. And Angeline, I wasn't able to really gather how big that sign was until a little bit later on into my healing journey. But my son, that next year, it was interesting because I started to receive like information downloads, and I didn't understand what it was. And at the time I was also researching NDEs, near death experiences, and what these experiencers were coming back and saying that they had experienced when they got out of the body just blew me away. I had no idea that this was even possible. So everything from this point on, um, I would like to talk about is energy, frequency, and vibration. And it's really interesting how this all works because remind you that we were not taught any of this stuff. We were taught as children, at young children, from the ages of 0 to 7. to grieve, to mourn. My son came to me in a dream and told me to go research this. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? So I did. And I found out that children from the ages of 0 to 7 intake information, not of logic, but through visual and audio on repetition to get an emotion. Way to go. The color, like this, this color is blue. They get a visual, they get the audio of blue. Way to go. Yay. To get an emotion. Well, isn't it interesting? What is one way you think that we could have been taught and told, learn how to grieve in our homes? I did this. My son did this. This is one piece of technology that is all in our homes that they use to program us. What do you think that would be?
Oh, that's interesting. Oh man, I've never been asked that question, but
Yeah.
um, wow. Let me think because I
Hmm.
I want to go. I want to say like the internet or the television or something like that.
You got it.
Yeah.
Because guess what? What is a television? A television is telling you a vision through visual and audio on repetition to get an emotion. So Cavan came to me and he was like, Mom, go look at Disney movies. I was like, what are the, I'm like, what are we talking about here? So I went and researched Disney movies. Now, everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. Now, guess on a frequency chart, guess where grief vibrates at? It vibrates at 75 hertz. Sorrow vibrates at 50 hertz. Guess where death vibrates at? 0 hertz. So you mean to tell me when I was in grief, sorrow, sadness, I was vibrating right next to death? Now, here's another thing that we were not taught about. We all have an electromagnetic field. It's an invisible field that proceeds us 6 to 8 feet out, 360 degrees around us. Now, when you are operating in what I call these, lower aspects of frequency, which is the grief, sorrow, blame, shame, guilt, less than, not enough, your electromagnetic field collapses in on you because it collapses in. And guess what that puts the body in? It puts the body into fight or flight. Guess what happens when you repeat this enough? You will find dis-ease showing up in the body because it's not in rest and repair. It's in fight or flight. I'm worried, anxious, blame, shame, guilt. And when you take a really look at how does grief, hurt, sorrow show up in your body? It's in it. Yeah, you can feel it. You're like, oh my God. Oh my God. So when Kevin came to me in a dream and said, Mom, go look Disney movies, I went and researched this. Guess what? Disney, Pixar, holiday movies, and you got it, the news, all operate in lower aspects of frequency. The blaming, the shaming, the guilt, the grief, the less than, the not enough, the anger, the fear. And what does that do to your electromagnetic field? It puts you all into fight or flight. So it was interesting, like Lion King. Lion King, he was separated from his pride and fear, less than, not enough. Dumbo got separated from his mother, grief, sorrow, pain, blame. All he wanted to do was fly. He was made less than, not enough, unworthiness. Then you have Bambi and Tarzan and Little Mermaid, Pocahontas, all of these movies that we sat at the age of 7 intaking this information of visual and audio and ran it to get it. That's how we took on these programs and we thought that they were how we did it through hypnosis. Because at that age, your brain is operating on theta, and theta brainwave is the same waveform as hypnosis. Isn't that interesting?
That's amazing. No, but I will tell you because I had a very unrealistic expectation of love in the sense of I grew up on the fantasy. I grew up on the Cinderella, the Snow White, the Sleeping Beauty. I was waiting for my Prince Charming to come and rescue me from all the childhood trauma that I was enduring. Not knowing, that that is
Not it.
not
That
it.
is not it.
Yeah.
Because isn't it interesting that we were taught to always look outside of ourselves for that, pleasure, for that acceptance, for that atta girl, way to go, I love you. And and when healing Healing is feeling it all, going within, figuring out why do I feel that? What is that? That's one thing I work with my clients is figuring out, our mental body. What is our minds? How many of us walk around here and our minds are just like running free, just thinking whatever the heck it wants to. Woo, it's a party, you know, and we're creating situations, experiences for ourselves, but we're unaware because we've just, we're locked, blocked, and stopped in victimhood or, hoping somebody will come save us, the saver program. Isn't it interesting that the mind is a very powerful tool, but if we just allow it to go unchecked, and wonder why our lives are shit. Well, I mean, there we go. So that's one of the tools that big tools that I help with my clients.
I love that. And so, okay, so this tragic of a story, your son being ripped away from you, probably at an I don't know, an early age, and
Yes.
by something that was totally unexpected, unaware, couldn't prevent it. Uh, to find that it spun you into the research of
Hmm.
near death experiences and all the
Hmm.
things that you're just like, okay, I'm praying about, I'm
Hmm.
looking for answers, things like that. When did you start deciding, okay, be limitless now is a thing that's a manifesting out of this
Hmm.
situation? When did that become a discovery for you?
Girl, it was crazy because if you would have told me in 2020 when my son passed that this is what I'd be doing, I would tell you, you have lost your mind. And it took, several years because when it came time for the whole court proceedings, um, I had to really do some deep diving, Angela, because I could have went down that road of blaming, shaming the guy for killing my son. I could have totally spun out. But who was I hurting? Who was hurting? How was that benefiting me any? Because still at the end of the day, I was not with my son. How could I, number one, honor my son's legacy? What could I do differently? Because you have to do, what is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. So I had to make a conscious decision. Okay, was I willing to continue to get stuck into this sorrow, this pain of hurt and agony? I just could not do it and still honor my child because my child would not have wanted me to stay in that. No, 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 no. And, it was interesting because my son started to come in and communicate with me. And so I've got some stories to share about this that absolutely, once again, I was blown away. Now, one day I'm sitting on my couch, Angelina, and I am like, oh my gosh, I need to go get in the shower. Go. Okay. So I go into my bathroom, I pull my shower curtain back, and I look inside the tub, and guess what I find? I find coins. Now, I don't know about you and your audience. I don't shower with coins. I don't have them in my hands. I don't have them in my pockets. How did what in the world's going on? So I picked up a coin and it had my son's death year on it, 2020. I said, man, now that's odd. But I wasn't able to put it together. I was just like, well, whatever, that's something freaky. I don't know. So about 2 weeks had passed. I get up out of bed. I make my bed as I normally do, tidy up, everything's great. that night, I come get my bed, pull my sheets back, and what do I find inside of my sheets that weren't there that morning? You got it. Coins. And I was like, what? No, I still wasn't able to put it together. I was not aware enough to put it together. So I guess it was, several days had passed. Oh, yeah, it gets better. And so I'm vacuuming my whole house. So I vacuum the living room. I go put the vacuum cleaner up. I come back in the living room and I look down on my freshly vacuumed floors. And what do I find? You got it. Coins. Now, I know for a fact these coins were not just here. I just vacuumed. How in the world did these coins get here? I picked one up. It had my son's birth year on it, 2000. I said, man, at this moment, I'm blown away. I called my mom. I was like, Mom, something strange is going on. I am finding coins all over my house. She said, oh my goodness, Bethany, your father and I, we are finding coins all over our house too. I said, do what? She said, yeah, I think it's Cavan trying to communicate with us. I said, oh my gosh, I hung up the phone. I ran out onto my deck and I said, hey, Cavan, hey, buddy, if this is you, man, can you show up for Mom like a bluebird or a redbird? The very next day, Angela, I was stalked by a blue jay and a cardinal. Everywhere I turned, there were these birds. And in that moment, I said, oh my goodness, this boy is trying to communicate with me. Well, he later came in and he showed me in a dream. He said, Mom, he said, when I was in my body, he said, and he calls it his meat suit. He said, because the body is the most densest, thing ever. He calls it his meat suit with his concrete shoes on. He said, Mom, it's so dense there. He said, but when I was in my body, you and I vibrated on the same frequency, kind of like you and I are right here, right now. He said, but Mom, when I died, I returned back into energy frequency and I rose. He said, but Mom, you dropped. He said, you went into grief, sorrow, blame, shame, hurt, grief. He said, you see how hard it is? You see the distance between that on a frequency level for us to communicate? And I said, oh my gosh. He said, Mom, I'm in higher rates. You're in lower rates. That's just not a thing. You can't vibrate and live in a lifestyle of lower and expect you can have communication with higher. And at that moment, I said, oh my gosh, you're right. You're right. So I started to deep dive myself because my personal belief is that I came here to know thyself and to know my co-creator, God, source, however anybody wants to look at that, is in communication and connection with me in each now moment. So I had to really deep dive what it is I'm thinking. Why am I thinking that? Is that a productive frequency vibration? Because here's the thing, we weren't taught about the lower and higher. But here's on a higher frequency chart, guess what's vibrating right up next to the divine is the frequency of gratefulness. That vibrates at 900 hertz. 900. Joy vibrates at 540. Love vibrates at 500. So you mean to tell me when I'm in these states, I am absolutely expanding my electromagnetic field. I am thriving and vibing. I'm healing and feeling. I am absolutely rest and repair. The total opposite of the lower. So yeah, why would I not choose that for myself? Hey, this feels so much better for me. Who says I have to keep that program of grief? Who says?
I love it because you're tapping into also what in biblical terms is called fruits of the spirit, right?
Yes,
Love,
yes.
joy, peace, kindness, gratitude, like all of that stuff. And you're not the first to come in here and say, okay, yeah, part of my healing journey was going to gratitude, finding something that I was thankful for. There is a thing in there. There is something there that's telling you, tapping into beyond just the external stuff that we're seeing, but really going into the heart of the spirit and saying, okay, yes, my life is hard right now. And yes, it sucks. And yes, this is happening, but I can still carry joy because joy isn't happiness. It's something that is internal. You carry it throughout everything. Doesn't mean that you're not experiencing grief and you're not experiencing loss or anything like that. You just have an inner peace in you
Hmm.
that says there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Hmm. And
Mm.
connecting to spirit has been my biggest healing modality. And I'm going to tell you one thing that I just absolutely love, that is one of my biggest healing modalities, is to take my shoes off and go step out into God's creation and put my feet on the earth and soak up his creation into my body, being, aura, and soul. And that right there is a frequency in itself. And experiencing that and just being is huge, huge. And knowing that you are connected with the divine in each moment. Yes, it's so powerful. It's so magical.
It is, and God is all around us. He's in everything. I mean, He's the
Everything.
creator. So, I mean, yes, taking your
Yes.
shoes off and feeling the wet grass and the cool, the cool earth under your feet. Yes, because
Yes.
it was created and God was there and in the moment.
Yes.
And so parts of Him
Yes.
in that as well. I love it. Oh my gosh. And so, go ahead. Um, let me just ask you, because I see the shape of who you've become through
Mhm.
this traumatic situation. What working with people,
Mhm.
they come to you and they're in a mind space of, I'm ready to make a change, right? They're coming
Mhm.
to you, they're ready to make a change. But what happens to that person you may run across who isn't quite in that mind space and is kind of in that in between, vibrating on those low frequencies, going, you know what? I don't know which way to go. I'm in this void of, despair or whatever. What kind of advice do you give that person?
Yeah, well, I like to have a conscious conversation. What is it that you are choosing to create for yourself? Why? Because I give them the awareness that they have a choice. This is choice. You can choose the program of running the hurt, the blame, the shame, because you're unaware of the choice. So you have to take a step back and say, well, what am I getting out of this for choosing these lower thoughts, feelings, and emotion? There's some kind of reward because you would choose differently. There's some kind of reward, that either the dopamine, maybe the martyr, maybe you like the there's a lot of programs and a lot of issues, but you're getting some kind of beneficial gain from it, or you would choose differently. So we go in and take a look at that. What's stemming from it? Yeah.
I like that. And you know what? Everything starts with a conversation because to really tap into what someone is thinking and feeling, you've got to ask questions. It's easy to judge the behavior. It's easy to judge what they're doing, but
Mhm.
it really isn't telling you what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and so I work in the child welfare system.
Mhm.
And so we talk about the brain and
Mhm.
the fight flight and a lot of
Mhm.
what trauma has told a person in
Mhm.
regards to their
Mhm.
identity and their
Mhm.
belief system. And you really have to go past that. You have to look beyond what they're doing to really understand who they think they are. And
And
then
yeah, yeah. And what's so interesting that I find just so why it blows my mind each time is that, I pay attention to the wording, because words are spelling words. And how many of these programs do we have running in the subconscious mind that we've said we'll never forget and always remember? Never and forever are always forever words. Never, so you got to take a look at those and see what spells are they casting upon themselves and to the subconscious mind too.
Mhm. I mean, and it's true because even biblically,
Hmm.
words carry power and they
Yeah.
really do. So understanding the meaning of a word is very important because that's what you're speaking, that's what you're professing onto your life, onto
Hmm.
yourself. So, yeah, I love this conversation. Bethany, what does living with purpose look like for you now?
Oh, wow. Wow. Stepping into my divine, authentic self. So when I got the awareness of, okay, I'm going to do something different for myself. I'm so used to operating out of the mind. Let me do something different. So I started to gain awareness of my mental chatter, storytelling, pain looping. When I gained awareness of the choices, I would shut the mind off. And guess what I did differently? I dropped into my heart. What do you get when you shut the mind off and now you are in your heart space? Because society has told us that a heart is nothing more than an organ pumping blood through the body, but I'm going to call on that because it does do that. But this is your powerhouse. This is your mental body is your broadcaster. This is your receiver. When you start to operate out of your heart, you are now a different human. You are vibrating on a frequency level vibration. You are now operating way different than most humans around you. So taking a look at operating from the heart is was one of my biggest things. Um, you know, stepping into presence because when you operate out of your heart, you are now present. I tell my clients thinking is stinking because thinking is only pulling experiences from the past and the future into the now. When you gain awareness of your mental chatter, you can start to choose differently for yourself. And dropping into your heart, you have presence. You regain choice.
It's true. It is true. Uh, Man, because your all your logic is up here, all your you're trying to make reason of
Mhm.
things and situations, but also your ego is
Ego.
right up
Yep.
there.
Oof.
And when you can step outside of ego, you really
Mhm.
do look at things differently. And so I love that you mentioned that operating from your heart, because that's where all of those fruits are. It really is, and the different look in life and the things that we encounter and whatnot.
Yes.
Um,
That's something for me. If you want to see a change, you first must be the change.
I love that.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. Oh, girl, you're speaking my language. All right. Well, Bethany, I know, we're getting close to kind of the end of our conversation,
Yeah.
but I do want to ask you a question of legacy and impact. I ask most of
Mhm.
my guests on the show,
Yeah.
if today were your last day, what would you want to be remembered for?
If today was my last day, I would want to be remembered for my authenticity. Just being able to be bold enough, brave enough to do something differently so I can get a different outcome and to operate and to be known that I operate out of love and out of compassion and out of gratefulness. That's what I wake up each day and harness and I hope and feel that everyone that comes in contact with me can feel that energetic presence of that from within me.
I love that. And I mean, and just to kind of sum it up in a phrase, and it's one I've said before, people don't remember who you were, what you said, but they definitely remember how you made them feel. And so that's important, friends, those that are
Mhm.
listening, to really understand that. Okay, Bethany, let's say someone's out there and they're like, you know what, I still don't know what my purpose is. What kind of word of maybe truth or encouragement can you give that person listening this morning that's saying, how can I find my purpose?
Get out of your mind. Get out of your mind because my personal belief God talks to you through your heart. And once you get to your purpose, you'll know it it's not about what somebody thinks you ought to do, you should do, you need to do what it's not about that. It's about how it allows you to step into that heart and showing up for yourself. And others will feel that and you will be the ripple like throwing a pebble into the lake. By you standing in your authenticity, you'll be that ripple pebble thrown into a lake and ripple out, and everybody else will then be able to have shifting moments because you have changed, like the 100th monkey.
That's true. That's so true. Well, Bethany, if someone listening today is like, ooh, I'm on that vibe with Bethany, I definitely want to get in contact with her. How can they do so?
Yes, they can go over to my website, Bee Limitless Now, like a bumblebee, Bee Limitless Now. And they can book a free call with me. Let's have a conscious conversation, and see how I can be of service to them. And also, now, when I have a podcast and it's called the Holy Shiftballs. And then what we do is we talk to all conscious creators, thought leaders, movers, shakers, entrepreneurs, healers, and have conversations about what is their holy shift ball moment that has allowed them to step into their purpose.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right. Well, I'm definitely going to subscribe for sure. I'm going to find that on YouTube. So you've
Yeah.
just gained a new subscriber.
Woo!
Well, Bethany, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your heart, your story, and your light with us today. Conversations like this remind us that purpose is not about perfection. It's about showing up, growing through the things that we go through, and trusting that every step matters. Here at the Good Morning Minute and through the Empower Her Steps movement, we believe every woman has a calling worth discovering and a voice worth using. So friend, wherever you are today, remember your purpose is powerful and you're not walking alone. So friend, until next time, keep rising, keep trusting, keep walking boldly into the life God has designed for you. I'm Angelina Mojica, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.